us. I'm going to start with the housekeeping, and then I'll make a few remarks just around the context of the conference and what it is that we hope to achieve with today's discussions and the discussions of the next 3 days. Because this is mainly a virtual conference and is happening on the Zoom platform, as we know in this day and age, there are a couple of useful tips and tricks that can help to make the conference a smoother process. And so we ask that all online participants please be on mute and switch their cameras off. We ask that the only camera that be on is that of the person who is speaking, and the only camera that will be on will usually be the ones where there are the in-person attendees. We ask that speakers switch their cameras on and unmute when they have been introduced by the chair, and that will allow them to do their presentation. Unfortunately, because of the nature of this hybrid event, we're not going to take live questions online. We'll only take live questions from the in-person venues. So for those who are attending online, we would ask that you please post your questions into the chat box. We'll use the speaker spotlight highlighting mechanism to allow for optimal viewing. And just a reminder for the online participants, you'll notice that there are sections of the program where there are breakaway panels, where there are parallel panel sessions. That will be facilitated using the Zoom platform. And so what we will do there is you will have the option to select a breakaway room. It'll pop up at the bottom of your screen with the name of the panel, and you will be able to select which of those parallel panels you wish to attend. In order to be able to take part and to make full use of the breakaway room facility, we do ask that people make sure they have downloaded the latest version of Zoom, as that will be necessary to make use of all of the tools. Lastly, we would just want people to note that because we are doing this in a hybrid mechanism, there are in-person venues in Johannesburg, in Durban, and East London. And there are attendees at those venues, but perhaps also attendees elsewhere who speak different languages. And so after the presentations, you'll notice that there will be about a 5-minute pause where we will take the opportunity to provide translation at the in-person venues. So we would just ask that online participants bear with us in that regard. Right, having done the sort of mundane housekeeping, I get to swing to perhaps the real sort of heart and meat of today's conference. We really have convened this conference as an intervention, perhaps a somewhat urgent intervention, to surface and expose some of the ongoing and mounting threats that exist against rural land rights in South Africa, but also perhaps in other parts of the continent. And so what the purpose of the conference is around having conversations that can help us prepare to scale up the defense of rights, but also to think about what it is that could offer protection to these rights in the form of legislation. And so we recognize that we sit some 25 plus years into South Africa's democracy, and there is still incredible vulnerability and insecurity of tenure experienced by the 18 million people who live in the former homeland areas. And so it would seem that after many years of struggle and some successes, there are still significant gaps in terms of protecting the tenure security of those who live on what is termed communal land, or what's considered communal land. And so part of the purposes of today and the next 2 days are to have discussions about further understanding the actual problem. And so today's focus is around describing the problem. Tomorrow's focus is around responding to the problem. And on the third day, on Friday, we look forward, asking the question of where to from here and how it is that we can take some of these struggles forward. It goes without saying, of course, that the existence of inadequate tenure security has a massive impact on the outcome of the other land reform programs. So not only is the focus here on the idea of tenure security, but also its relationship and impact on distribution and restoration. And so it becomes important for us to ensure that we're having a conversation that is holistic in nature and that acknowledges the interconnectedness of these land reform programs and how it is that conversations around tenure security as one of the leg can potentially strengthen the outcomes of the other two. As I was saying, the conference is really about convening and drawing together both activists and academics and allies in the interest of drawing attention back to the need to secure the tenure, land, and resource rights of vulnerable communities. And so we recognize that what we wanted to do here today is to inform and enrich the public, academic, and the political discourse about land tenure rights, to discuss some of the ongoing threats to these rights, and talk about the urgent need for legal measures to protect and enhance tenure security within the framework of the Constitution. We really hope that the conference will be able to do this by interrogating past and current contestations over property and authority within the former homeland areas and on areas that are considered land reform land. We hope that the event will shine a light on the vested interests that are at stake, both those of the communities who live on this land, but also some of the other interests that often influence the approaches that are taken to tenure security. We hope to interrogate how and why the state has chosen to pursue policies and to enact legislation that rather favors elites, including traditional leaders. And we hope to contribute to the strategies and practices of community mobilization, policy initiatives, and litigation approaches to resist and defend tenure security in the former homelands and on land that was held by the South African Development Bank and the trust, and on the land reform land more generally. So really, the intention with this conference is to kickstart what we believe to be important conversations, to bring these back into the spotlight, and hopefully to draw together energies, intentions, and thinking with the hopes of proceeding to find solutions and craft a better way forward. Ndizothatha ithuba loba ndiphinde ndinamkele ngesiXhosa lwimi lasekhaya. Ndiyanamkela nonke kule nkomfa yethu. Sizoba sisonke kwiintsuku ezintathu ezilandelayo namhlanje ngomso nangoLwesihlanu. Sinovuyo kakhulu babantu bakwazile ukuthatha ixesha labo babe nathi, ingakumbi ke mna ke ndithetha nabantu apha eMonti, kodwa ke kubo bonke abantu abazixhalabileyo bathatha ithuba loba babe khona kule nkomfa, siyabulela kakhulu. Into esingayo kwezi ntsuku zintathu sizothetha ngomba womhlaba, ingakumbi amalungelo abantu abahlala kwindawo ekuthiwa kusemaphandleni, abantu basezilalini, abantu abahlala kwimihlaba apho kukho abaholi bendabuko, inkosi ngokwesiXhosa. Eyona nto besifuna uyenza kwezi ntsuku zintathu yinto yoba sifuna uva ingaba zithini na ingxaki abantu abajongene nazo apho bahlala khona. Sikhe sidibane sonke ukucinga ba ingaba zithini na izisombululo esinokhe sizicinge, ithini na indlela eyaphambili, ngoba kuyabonakala nangona ke sinawo umgaqo-siseko, sina iminyaka eyi-25, ngapha kwe-25 siphila phantsi komthetho wolawulo wobuninzi, i-democracy ngokwesilungu. Kuyabonakala ba amalungelo omhlaba abantu abahlala ezilalini asengenengene. Kuyabonakala ba urhulumente akakazi kakuhle necebo elizokhusela amalungelo abantu ngokomhlaba. Ngoko ke besiqonde ba masikhe sidibanise inhloko zethu thina apha eMonti kunye nabanye abakwindawo ngendawo, sikhe sizocinga kunye sibone ukuba ingaba lithini na icebo. Le nkomfa esiyenzayo namhlanje, nangona thina sidibene apha eMonti, kukho abantu abadibanayo eRhawutini naseThekwini, kubekho ke ngoku nabantu abasijoyinayo kule nto ekuthiwa iZoom online aspect ye-conference.
Sorry, Chair, you're breaking up. We cannot hear you.
Is that a bit better? Melody, is that slightly better?
That's better now. Thank you.
Sure. Bendisathi ke sizokhe sidibane nje sidlana indlebe sinikane amacebiso. My last point of speaking before I hand over to the next item on the program is to acknowledge those who have made this conference possible. It would not have been possible for us to convene together and to come together in this way without the support of a number of parties. I would like to acknowledge the funders who contributed towards the costs of pulling this conference together, most notably the Ford Foundation, the National Research Foundation, the Australian government, the Claude Leon Foundation, the Department of Science and Innovation. We acknowledge PARI, the Public Affairs Research Institute, and the Heinrich Böll Foundation. And we thank them for the contributions that they have made to pulling this conference together. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge our co-organizers. So I am here as the director of the Land and Accountability Research Center, but our colleagues at PLAS, our colleagues at SWAP, our colleagues at the LRC, and our colleagues at the ARD, the Alliance for Rural Democracy, I would like to acknowledge all of them for the efforts that they have put in to help us make this conference possible. With that said, I am going to hand over to Unokwanda in the Durban venue, who's going to take us through a moment of acknowledging those who have left us, those who have passed, who are no longer with us, and we take a moment to acknowledge some loss, as we take a moment to acknowledge who is no longer part of the struggle, but to recognize them for the contributions they have made. Once we have done that, I will then step back in and we will convene the opening plenary conversation, which will kick off the discussions for this conference. Nokwanda?
Thank you so much, Nolundi, and thank you so much for taking us through these next 3 days and what to expect. My name is Nokwanda Sihlali. I'm from the Land and Accountability Research Center. Today, we'll be doing a remembrance session for those who have passed in our sector in the past several years. But again, if we're going to start in also remembering our comrades, we need to start with a song. So angazi ke ubani ongasithatha ngculo angazi ubani. Can I please have a song for our comrades? Rev Mavuso. Ngicela usithathe baba.
Selani qini selani nani wema owaze usedu selani yakini selani qini selani nani wema owaze usedu selani yakini selani Selani nani wema Obase useduze Asi yako Ayanigasa Ayesaba Makwala Singutono Singuyele Ayanigasa Long live the spirit of the dead heroes, long live.
Long live.
Long live the spirit of no surrender, long live.
Long live.
Amanda!
Away, Nyenka. Ngiyabonga kakhulu. That's a very powerful start to remembering the comrades, fallen comrades in our struggle. We pay tribute and commemorate land defenders who passed away in the last several years. They were visionaries in their communities and across the rural landscape. Visionaries who championed the struggle for land with powerful women also leading these struggles for land. Many have lost their lives at the forefront of resistance. In South Africa, but also elsewhere. According to last year's Global Witness report, 2020 was the deadliest year recorded for the murders of grassroots land and environmental activists. Globally, 227 of these activists were killed. The majority of those killed were land activists who opposed the economic interests of corporations and individuals in mining and other extractive industry. Violence does not end with mining and other corporations taking over community land. Those displaced from their land are recruited as cheap labor. Land struggles are connected to labor struggles, especially here in South Africa. We therefore also acknowledge yesterday as the 10th year anniversary of the massacre of striking workers at Marikana on the 16th of August 2012. A massacre that took place on communal land in a struggle for decent wages by those working to extract mineral wealth. We recognize that violence is a tool used and misused by those in power in its different forms. Power to silence those who defy and weaken those who resist. Having suffered enough under apartheid, we cannot replicate the same pain and devastation as was caused before. Yet we still find that this is happening. We see ongoing assassination of land rights defenders even now under the democratic government, in communal but also urban areas as the dispossessed struggle to find a place in the city. We do not see those responsible being prosecuted and convicted. We plead with those in power to protect rural citizens in the former homelands and take learnings and lessons from this conference forward for wider societal change, reimagining the rural landscape and confirming the land rights of all. We therefore remember and honor those land rights defenders who have passed away across the provinces in our sector. So sometimes it's okay for us to say 227 people have passed away, but sometimes they get close, bayavaleka under that number. Who are they? There's a power in naming who our activists were, because they were parents, they were workers, they were community members, they were children of other people as well. So in each and every province, ngizosho amagama of all the activists that have passed away. KwaZulu Natal, uBheki Nhlanhla Mabaso, uThandi Ngidi, Ezra Mshandu, uMamsizane Ngubane, uMnini Mandla Ntombela, uBongani Zikhali, uDean Ntuli, uMamfikile Ntshangase, uAyanda Ngili, who was assassinated, uNokuthula Mabaso, also assassinated, uMkhulu Zabalaza Shengu, uSifiso Ngcobo, uCingo Shabalala, Michael Shabalala, uMzikhayise Mavundla, uSikhethini Beauty, uMashezi. In the Eastern Cape, uGladys Mpepo, uMakana Elsipeta, uBazuka Radebe, who was also assassinated, Nonontobeko Maletsane. In the Northwest, uDavid Petro, Reverend Cyprian Ramosime, uMaria Mapula Mulete, uSetou, uRoni Munye, uKwes Mohotsi. eLimpopo, uVasco Mabunda, uWilliam Mokgetle, noThera Masha. eMpumalanga, uMbonas Stanley Mashego, uEphraim Muhlolo Muletele, uKenneth Mnisi, uWilfred Chilwane, Abios Mudipane, uMillion Tonga, uLesegameng Mueng, Mutsogeng Efias Mugope, uIshmael Sekatane, Fitas Musoma. We say Nilalen Ngokuthula Makawe, Robalang ka kgotso, bagale ba rena. Siyabonga. Back to you, Chair.
Chair, you on mute. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I was just asking that people stand where they are for a moment of silence to remember those who have passed. Apologies. So if everyone could stand for a moment of silent prayer and reflection. Siyabulela, thank you.